Beijing, 1985, early June. From time to time, there is a blowing, which makes the world dark and the sandstorm temporarily stops, and after a heavy rain, the sky and the earth are finally no longer grey and chaotic. The blue sky, white clouds, red flowers, and green trees are clear and clear. Without the cover of sand and dust, the sun slanting from the west is more intensely falling on the earth, and it is also spreading on the green creeper, which is struggling to climb and grow, and wants to wrap up the two-story small building. The broad leaves absorb most of the heat. The heat seemed to have built a shading screen for the small building. This small building is the office building of the 100 Flowers movie magazine under Dazhong Daily. It is located in the headquarters compound of Dazhong Daily, behind the main building and the staff canteen. In the small building, on the right side of the second floor, in the office with door number 208, there is a large yellow wooden desk with a layer of glass on the window. Some books, newspapers, stationery. In the wooden photo frame on the right-hand side, there is a photo. In the photo is a beautiful little boy of 2 or 3 years old, holding a balloon in each hand, smiling brighter than the bright sun outside. This child is half like the young woman writing at the desk, and it is easy to imagine the relationship between the two. The young woman is Yan Rugzhu, deputy editor-in-chief of the editorial group of 100 Flowers Movies magazine. She screwed on the cap of the pen, put the pen down casually, raised her hands and rubbed her neck to do shoulder and neck exercises. The pen touched the glass panel of the desk and made a crisp click sound, which attracted Lu Shu, who was sitting across the table from her, to look over subconsciously, and her eyes were immediately attracted by Yan Rugzhu. Yan Rugzhu's skin in front of her eyes was fair and delicate, and the sand and dust blown from the north were very gentle to her, without leaving any blow marks on her face. The oval face, big eyes, and the distance between the eyes are slightly wider, which perfectly complements her high nose bridge and moderate mouth, making it more bright and atmospheric. Her long black hair is not curled, but behind her head the half-height position is tied up, revealing a full forehead, neat and tidy. Her figure has not been out of shape after giving birth. She is still slender and fit, exuding an indescribable aura all over her body, which is the kind that you will notice her at the first sight in a crowd. Her eye-catching is not only due to her figure and appearance, but also her height of 173 centimeters. She is taller than many men in the unit. Even a men's watch with a large dial on her wrist is not obtrusive. Lu Shu's eyes showed envy, and she touched her face unconsciously. The slightly rough touch made her feel sour involuntarily. I am 32 years old this year, and I am only 6 years older than Yan Rugzhu. I was not as good as her at first, but now I have wrinkles, yellow spots on my face, dry hair, and a disfigured figure. Standing with Yan Rugzhu is like two people. Generations. If Yan Rugzhu is only good-looking, Lu Shu can also despise her with gold and jade, but she has appearance, and comfort herself with poems and books in her stomach, but Yan Rugzhu is so young. He has won the annual news award, and now he is the deputy editor-in-chief and his immediate boss. It's almost unbearable to be jealous. After being lost for a moment, Lu Shu thought of Yan Rugzhu's other identity, a divorced woman, and she felt a lot more balanced in her heart, and even felt a sense of superiority. No matter how beautiful and capable she is not a divorced woman without a husband. Single mom raising a son alone. You must know that the main building of Dazhong Daily's headquarters, together with its subordinate 100 Flowers film magazine, has hundreds of people up and down. Among the younger generation, there is only one divorced person. The matter of her divorce, I don't know how many times she chewed it in the mouths of her colleagues, and it was all chewed into pieces, and she could still chew the sweetness from time to time. Puzzled, despised, bad-mouthed, guessed. Lu Shu thought, if she was like her, being pointed at and talked about by others, she would definitely not be able to stand it long ago and would go crazy. But the one in front of her didn't care, as if she wasn't the one the big guy was talking about. She didn't waste time eating or drinking, but the more she lived, the better she was, and she raised her son well by herself. When mentioning Yan Rugzha's son, Lu Shu immediately saw the appearance of Kong Kong, carved in pink and jade, graceful and extremely polite. It's not an exaggeration, Lu Shu has never seen such a cute child, who makes people unconsciously want to hug and kiss him, and agree to all his requests. Thinking of her own son who was spoiled by his mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who pushed him away because of his bad habits, Lu Shu's sense of superiority that had just arisen slowly shrank back. After finishing the shoulder and neck exercise, Yan Rugzha raised the plum watch on her left wrist to check the time. It was 16:55. Looking at Lu Shu, who should have left work early, she was still sitting here, and she couldn't help but feel a little strange. "Sister Lu, why haven't you gone back yet?" The working hours of the newspaper office are 8 a.m. and 1700 hours p.m., with a tahur break at noon, but the attendance is not strict. If you have something to say, you can come later or leave earlier. Lu Shu used to be the last person to get off work in the office, but in the past 2 weeks, she left an hour earlier. "Ah, my mother-in-law has been discharged from the hospital, so I don't have to rush to cook and deliver meals for her in the future." "Oh, then you don't have to work so hard in the future," Yan Rugzha said. "No, my mother-in-law." Lu Shu was about to praise her mother-in-law and husband habitually, when she saw that Yan Rugzha had already stood up, and picked up her satchel and sun hat from the wooden hanger behind her. She forgot that Yan Rugzha didn't like to talk to everyone about the parents' problems. Apart from work, she would talk more when talking about children, so Lu Shu changed the subject and asked, "Pick up the children?" Yan Rugzha nodded, smiled, and said, "Yeah, I went late yesterday, and he was the only one left in the class. The little guy insisted on standing in the yard waiting for me, and his face was blushing." Lu Shu agreed with empathy. Being a mother is like this. "I don't want my child to suffer a little bit of grievance. Hurry up and go." Yan Rugzha explained a few words about the manuscript to the other 3 colleagues in the office, and then she picked up her backpack and put on her sun hat and walked out. Her office is located on the inside of the corridor. After walking through the long corridor, she greeted several passing colleagues before going down to the first floor. Walking forward for more than 300 meters, passing by the staff canteen, passing through the lobby of the main building where Dazhong Daily is located, and coming to a front yard that is at her the size of a football field. The corridor in the middle of the yard is paved with cement. On both sides are flower ponds made of red bricks, in which are planted red, pink, and white broom plums, which are half the height of a person. They pass through the gaps in the flower ponds. A single-story bicycle shed built against the wall. Yan Rugzha walked through the flower pond and walked to the carport on the right. From a distance, relying on the probably new bamboo child seat, she accurately found her 28-year-old car. Now lesbians with better economic conditions are popular to ride 26 women's bicycles, but that kind of bicycle has no beams, and if you take someone with you, you can only sit in the back seat. The child is too young, and it is dangerous to sit in the back seat, so Yan Rugzha has not changed. She took out the keychain from her satchel, found the car keys, unlocked the circular car lock under the seat, pushed the bicycle out, and shook the child seat tied layer by layer with nylon rope on the front beam of the car. Seeing that the seat was not moving at all, he stepped on the bicycle and rode out. Editor Yan, wait for me." As soon as she drove out of the gate and onto the main road, someone called her from behind. The voice was familiar, but Yan Rugzha frowned unconsciously. She was going to pretend she didn't hear it, but the sound of the bicycle behind was clanging. That person actually accelerated the speed. Yan Rugzha couldn't help but think that there was a time last winter, this person fell into a snowdrift with his bicycle in order to catch up with him, but he still tried his best to stick his head out of the snowdrift and got stuck. Shwet, with her face full of head and face, smiled flatteringly at herself. Yan Rugzha supported the bicycle with her feet, stopped, and turned her head to look at the person. "The author has something to say, please support the little cuties who read this article." The person who came was Wang Wan, about 30 years old, a handyman in the logistics of Dazhong Daily, and she was Yan Rugzhu's colleague. Just looking at her face, she is undoubtedly a beauty, but unfortunately she is too short, her shoulders are only slightly higher than the seat of the bike when she is standing, and riding on a 28th bicycle is very difficult, and she can only pedal half and half circles. It's like a junior high school student who just learned to ride a bicycle, a little funny. Seeing Yan Rugzhu stop, Wang Wan slammed on the brakes. Before the car stopped, she jumped to the ground anxiously, but was carried forward by the bicycle that hadn't stopped, and nearly fell down. But he didn't care, and when he stood still, he hurriedly pushed the bicycle back to Yan Rugzhu's side, and said out of breath, "I've finally caught up with you." The tone is very familiar, like how close friends he Yenru is. In fact, Yan Rugzhu is not familiar with Wang Wan. Originally, Yan Rugzhu didn't have much contact with her when she was working in the main building. She was only called Editor Yan when they met. After the office, the two seldom even met each other. Wang Wan's unilateral and undue enthusiasm for Yan Rugzhu began after Yan Rugzhu and Sui Yuanzi divorced. Wang Wan's parents-in-law and husband are ordinary employees of the city's number 1 machinery factory, while Sui Yuanzi's father, Sui Mingli, is the deputy director of the number 1 machinery factory, and his mother, Ma Jingguo, is the vice chairman of the No. The big leader that Wang Wan's family can't reach. After the less than 1 year marriage between Yan Rugzhu and Sui Yuanzi ended, Wang Wan gradually acted as the mouthpiece of Ma Jingying. Even now that Yan Rugzhu and Sui Yuanzi have been divorced for several years, Ma Jinwu still passes Wang Wan, and visits Yan Rugzhu from time to feel her presence. Undoubtedly, Ma Jingguo found the right person. Wang Wan has a thick skin, and she can greet her with a smile no matter if she is sarcasm or cold-eyed. This kind of person, Yan Rugzhu has only been in contact with this one in 2 lifetimes. She doesn't like it very much, but if you say she hates it, it's not so much. In the final analysis, Wang Wan was just pushed out as a gunman, and the culprit was Ma Jingguo, who wanted to use Wang Wan to scare her. Wang Wan herself didn't know, but she came here because she had a plan to make trouble. She was self-aware, and never talked about Sui family affairs with Yan Rugzhu when other people were present. She was looking for opportunities. Just like just now, she kept staring downstairs in the office, and when she saw Yan Rugzhu coming out, she quickly chased after her. At this time, seeing Yan Rugzhu stopped and waited for her, there was some gratitude in his eyes. Yan Rugzhu looked at his watch, frowned slightly and said, "It's been a big fuss in kindergarten, don't you plan to let it go?" Knowing who she was referring to, Wang Wan laughed dryly, and said as usual, "Editor Yan, don't blame me. Chairman Ma is the leader of the factory. She asked me to take a message, and I dare not take it." Wang Wan looked at the expression on her face again, and said quickly, "Chairman Ma asked me to speak for a while, saying that I haven't seen Kong Kong for a long time, she misses her very much, and asked you to take Kong Kong over there this Sunday." She rubbed the handlebars with both hands, as if she wanted to rub a layer of skin off the handlebars, then took a deep breath, and answered very quickly. She said, "If you don't let her see her grandson again, she will have to find the leaders of the newspaper had a chat." Upon hearing this, a sneer appeared on Yan Rugzhu's expressionless face, then let her come over and have a chat. Also threatened. Shi Yan Ru may not be afraid of this trick, if she really wants to tear her face completely, it is not known who will be ashamed. Wang Wan said again and again, "Editor Yan, don't blame me. Chairman Ma asked me to pass on a message, and I dare not pass it on. My husband and my mother-in-law are small workers in the machinery factory. If I offend her, those little shoes will be useless. It's over, my in-laws and men are not living a good life, and my status in the family is already low, let alone a good life." Yan Rugzhu glanced at her. Wang Wan became more and more guilty. What she said was the truth without any falsehood. She felt guilty because she understood the meaning of Yan Rugzhu's look, as if she was questioning her, "Are you afraid of offending Chairman Ma, are you afraid of offending me? Of course she was afraid. Wang Wan is just a logistics handyman with the status of a worker. She came from a rural family. She only had a junior high school education. She was lucky enough to take over the shift of a widowed relative, which belongs to the kind that anyone can use. And Yan Rugjia was one of the first batch of college students after the resumption of the college entrance examination. He was an undergraduate student in the Chinese department of Yanjing University. Before he graduated, he was scrambled by various units. She has a 10th level salary, won the annual news award, and now the photo is still hanging on the honor wall of the newspaper. If she hadn't taken the initiative to apply to be transferred to the magazine, she still doesn't know how much she has achieved. The status of the two in the newspaper office is very different. If Yan Rugjia targets her, Wang Wan will have a very difficult life in the newspaper office. However, Yan Rugjia is an intellectual, magnanimous, educated, and qualified, so he would not deliberately target himself, a small person. But Chairman Ma is different, he is small-minded, and he must retaliate. In the machinery factory, he has the meaning of those who follow me will prosper and those who oppose me will perish. Compared with the lesser of the two, Wang Wan naturally chose the more powerful side of Ma's Hai Wo. Yan Rugjia saw people like Wang Wan clearly, and to put it more elegantly, he would rather offend a gentleman than a villain. In layman's terms, it means bullying honest people, bullying people who are more reasonable and moral. It's just human affection. Yan Rugjia wouldn't punish Wang Wan for this, but after all, she didn't let others push her nose. She was condescending, and looked at Wang Wan lightly. Has anyone in your family been promoted? Wang Wan was startled. She didn't understand how she knew about this, but she couldn't help but tell the truth, so she replied cowardly, my partner has become the workshop team leader. Yan Rugjia smiled inexplicably, and said, treasure it, I will have to rely on my ability in the future. With that said, he tightened his hat, kicked his long legs, and rode away on his bicycle. Wang Wan pondered over Yan Rugjia's words, kept watching her back and went straight, then turned right, and disappeared from sight around the fence, then wiped the sweat from her forehead, stepped on the bicycle pedals and ran quickly to help. Waiting for the bicycle after driving steadily, he stepped over the beam with his right leg, stared at the bicycle in a half circle, and headed in another direction, while thinking messily in his heart, oh, just now, Editor-in-Chief Yan's aura was too strong. And those beautiful eyes swept over him, and the little thoughts hidden in his heart seemed to be seen through. It was really scary. Editor-in-Chief Yan was not an approachable person, so he posted it himself. He was polite and qualified, so he didn't speak ill of this dog leg. In the future, you have to do less about being a sounding board for Chairman Ma, and even if you do, you have to get more benefits. In other words, Chairman Ma went too far this time, even threatening Editor-in-Chief Yan. You are the chairman of the labor union of a machinery factory, and it's okay to be a boss in the machinery factory, but you want the daily newspaper to show your power? However, no matter what, her mission this time has been completed anyway. As for whether Yan Rugjia will go or not, she is beyond her control. Naturally, Yan Rugjia would not go, let alone the threat of Ma Jinying. When they married Sui Yuanzi back then, they had an agreement. When they divorced, they made it clear to Sui Yuanzi that in the future, roads will return to roads and bridges will return to bridges, without any involvement and no contact with each other. But Ma Jingguo didn't know the inside story of their marriage, and refused to give up. She would come here from time to find some sense of existence. Yan Rugjia didn't believe that she had any real feelings for Kong Kong. When Kong Kong was the grandson of Ma Jinying, he didn't see her so strangely. Because the child took her surname, he wouldn't even hug her. This mention of Kong Kong is just an excuse. As for the reason why Ma Jinguo would come over to discuss her from time to time, Yan Rugjia can probably analyze it. There are 3 reasons. How dare she divorce such an excellent son? She doesn't plan to start a family anymore, she is divorced from her excellent son, and she is still living so well. How can this make Ma's Hai Wo, who has been strong for a lifetime, reconciled? Ma Jingguo doesn't want to make Yan Rugjue feel better, but she and Yan Rugjue are in the two systems, and she can't be flattened and rounded like Wang Wan, and Yan Rugjue is not an unknown little person. Her ability is not that great, she can't be punished like the workers of Machinery Factory No. 1, so she can only resort to some disgusting tricks. The last time Ma Jinwo came to the kindergarten to make trouble, after Yan Rugjue went to find Sui Yuanzi, Ma Jinwo didn't come to harass her again, thinking that she would stop there, who knew that she would learn to threaten this time. Presumably Sui Yuanzi failed the blind date again, and Ma Jingwo took all the anger on herself. Yan Rugjue sneered, and decided to have a chat with Sui Yuanzi as soon as possible, to let them know that she is not the only one who threatens people. Yan Rugjue made up her mind, and rode her bicycle along the wall of Dazhong Daily to the back, and arrived at her destination, the kindergarten affiliated to Dazhong Daily. Yan Rugjue parked her bicycle at the door. She came here today neither early nor late, and during the time of parking, several colleagues from the newspaper office came over one after another to say hello to each other. The author has something to say, 3 new articles, please support. HTML error body font family to home Verdana Arial sans serif, margin 0 auto, width 35 m span display none error occurred. Sorry Thepiji Wara looking for is currently unavailable. Please try again ladder.var _hasync equals _hasync dot push, histats.start, 1,4561773,4,0,0,0,000,000,000, _hasync.push, histats.faci, 1, _hasync.push, histats.track_hits, function, vars equals document.createlement, script, s.type equals text / javascript s.async equals 0 s.src equals / s10.histats.com /js15 _s.js, document.getElements batag name, head, 0 document.getElements batag name, body, 0, append child, s. HTML error body font family to home Verdana Arial sans serif, margin 0 auto, width 35 m span display none error occurred. Sorry Thepiji Wara looking for is currently unavailable. Please try again ladder.var _hasync equals _hasync dot push, histats.start, 1,4561773,4,0,0,0,000,000,000, _hasync.push, histats.faci, 1, _hasync.push, histats.track_hits, function, vars equals document.createlement, script, s.type equals text / javascript s.async equals 0 s.src equals / s10.histats.com /js15 s.js, document.getElements batag name, head, 0 document.getElements batag name, body, 0, append child, s. HTML error body font family to home Verdana Arial sans serif, margin 0 auto, width 35 m span display none error occurred. Sorry Thepiji Wara looking for is currently unavailable. Please try again ladder.var _hasync equals _hasync dot push, histats.start, 1,4561773,0,0,0,0,000,000,000, _hasync.push, histats.faci, 1, _hasync.push, histats.track_hits, function, vars equals document.createlement, script, s.type equals text / javascript s.async equals 0 s.src equals / s10.histats.com /js15 s.js, document.getElements batag name, head, 0 document.getElements batag name, body, 0, append child, s. Kong is generous, not fussy, not angry, easy to be happy, and not so sensitive. This is exactly the character that Yan Rugzhe wants her child to have. She hopes that her child will continue to be like this. She doesn't want to have a great future in the future. She just hopes that he will be healthy and happy all his life, and live happily and safely. Although Kong Kong is not a sensitive child, he is very smart. From the situation just now, he guessed that something bad might have happened. Happy. Yan Rugzhe said, "It's okay, baby, mom hasn't been wronged. You see so many uncles, aunts, grandparents are helping mom just now, we are on the side of justice." Kang Kang's little head thought about the situation just now, and immediately became happy. Seeing that he had reached the gate of his house, he swayed on the car seat a few times. "Mom, I want to go down. This is the main entrance of our own yard. There is a single wooden door standing on two long stone steps. It was newly replaced before moving, and it was covered with a thin iron sheet in the shape of snowflakes. In the middle of the door, the Chinese New Year stickers and the couplets on both sides have lost some color due to the wind and rain, but they are still intact. The high wall completely blocks the inside of the yard. From the outside, only a raised corner of the eaves can be seen. The fence was raised before she moved here. The original walls of the Wujin mansion were tall and thick, imitating the palace walls of the Forbidden City, but the height and thickness were reduced by a few inches, and they were made of green bricks and clay, with a smooth appearance, so that the flying thieves could be taller even if they wanted to. There is no focus on going up and down. Later, in order to accommodate more residents, the Housing Management Office organized manpower to demolish most of the walls, and the only thing left was the blank of the back wall. Comparing the crude adobe wall built later with the original wall, it is as if Wu Dalan met Guan Yi, the gap is too big. The reason why Yan Rugzhe rebuilt the fence was that the ants in the compound often peeped from the top of the wall. They are too courageous, and when they are discovered, they just smile sarcastically, and even greet you without changing their expressions, as if their behavior is very normal and there is nothing wrong with it. These people may not have any bad intentions, they are simply curious, but for those who attach great importance to personal privacy, they are really disturbing. Thinking deeper, these ordinary people can easily climb up the wall. Wouldn't it be easier for those snitches and thieves to come in? The more Yan Rugzhe thought about it, the more frightened she became, and soon contacted an engineering team under the Municipal Construction Bureau. The engineering team did not take on private business, but Yan Rugzhe interviewed them when she was a reporter in Dazhong Daily, and they had some friendship. For her sake, they sent a contracting team to work overtime to help her renovate the fence. The new wall is flush with the original wall in the backyard, only the thickness has been reduced, which was enough in the Taiping era. The wall on three sides is not a big project, not to mention the labor cost. The material cost alone cost a lot of money, but Yan Rugzhe is willing to take the money. After the fence was built, those ants could no longer climb up, and Yan Rugzhe felt much more at ease. Next to the gate is the end of the alley. The original owner built a small room of more than 20 square meters here, which happened to be used to store bicycles and other sundries. Aunt Hua cleaned the steps and the surrounding areas of her own yard clean, and the uneven ground was also covered with ashes. Walking all the way from Bailei Hutong, it seems to have experienced different worlds, from noisy to quiet, from messy to clean, with sharp contrasts. Yan Rugzhe tilted the bicycle, and Kong Kong climbed down like a little monkey, then climbed up the steps with his short legs, stretched out his little hand, and jumped to reach the door lock. Naturally, he couldn't reach it, but he was not discouraged. He turned and jumped and shouted, "Mom, give me the key, and I will open the door." Yan Rugzhe was helpless, so he had no choice but to get his bicycle and came over first, grabbed Kang Kang's waist with one hand, lifted him up, half leaned on his right leg, and at the same time fumbled for a keychain from his satchel, and handed it to Kong Kong. Kong! Kong Kong skillfully found out the door key, and Yan Rugzhe held Kang Kang's little hand again and unlocked it together. Kong Kong is in good health and has been carefully fed by Yan Rugzhu. He is as strong as a calf, but he is only 3 years old. He can't lift things that are too heavy, and he can't do tasks that are too delicate and dexterous, but it doesn't affect his ability to work. Enthusiasm, he feels that even if he participates, he has done it, no matter whether he contributes or not, or whether it is a disservice, he has a sense of accomplishment. Yan Rugzhu opened the door, took out the key, and told Kong Kong, "Mom, go and put the bicycle in the hut first, don't move here, wait for Mom to go in together, okay?" Kong Kong nodded obediently, and repeated his mother's words, "I won't move, I'll wait for my mother to come back together." Yan Rugzhu walked down the steps again, unlocked the door lock of the small room, pushed the bicycle in, and locked the door lock before bringing Kong Kong in. "The law and order is not very good recently, I heard that there are always people throwing things away. In this day and age, bicycles are still a rare item and a favorite of thieves, so they need to be locked up. After entering, close the courtyard door, insert the door, and lock the gate from the inside with a door lock. There are only 2 people living in such a large courtyard, so you can't be too careful." The yard where the couple lived was a very regular rectangle. When they entered, the first thing they saw were neat vegetable plots, including eggplants, tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, hot peppers, corn. More than 10 kinds of vegetables were planted, 1 vegetable plot and 1 vegetable plot. Placed very well. There is a row of 3 wing rooms on the east side of the courtyard, which are now used by Yan Rugzhu as a kitchen, dining room, and utility room. Although the 4 houses in the main house are for the family members to rest temporarily, they are also large tile-roofed houses facing south and north. The foundation was laid very high, and it was comfortable to live in. It was warm in winter and cool in summer without humidity. 3 steps up the stairs led to an extremely wide platform covered with cement, surrounded by a wide fence made of cement and masonry. There are several pots of flowers in full bloom on the fence. This is Aunt Hua's favorite place in the whole yard besides the vegetable garden, because it is especially useful to dry vegetables and dry grain after autumn. Between the platform and the east wing, there is an apricot tree. The tree is not too tall. The trunk is as thick as an adult's thigh, and the leaves are dense on it, covering a shade. The fruit on this tree is called fragrant white apricot. It is big and sweet. The mature season is around the Dragon Boat Festival. Aunt Hua breaks apart the inedible apricots and puts them on the platform to dry into dried apricots. They are steamed in winter or boiled with rock sugar for drinking. They taste good. There is a wooden table and 2 small benches under the shade of the tree, and the couple sometimes eat here. The author has something to say, Yan Rugzhu properly by Fume. Don't forget to bookmark, cuties, it's up to you if there is a list, please. There is a long and narrow space between the main room and the rear wall, which can accommodate 3 people walking side by side. At the southeast corner of the courtyard wall, a small crescent-shaped corner door was opened. The iron door above was old and heavy. The paint on the corners was peeled off and rusted, and it creaked when it was opened and closed. On the west side, from the path between the wall and the main house to the end, there is a toilet at the corner, which was originally in the mansion, and it is very delicately built. This small corner door used to be used for the entry and exit of toilet diggers. Entering from the small corner door, the left-hand side is blocked by the toilet courtyard wall, and you can only enter from the right-hand side, and then enter the narrow passage between the east wall and the main house. There is an iron fence gate with an iron lock hanging on it, and people on both sides can unlock it. This is the second barrier. Even if you forget to lock the corner door and you can enter the backyard, if you don't have the key, you can only be trapped in the narrow passage. Go out from the small corner gate, and you will arrive at another street, walk through this street and walk south, and you will arrive at the courtyard where Aunt Hua lives in a 10-minute walk. For convenience, Aunt Hua often came in and out through this small corner door. As soon as he entered his yard, Kong Kong was like a fish in the water. He ran into the vegetable pond, first in the tomato pond to carefully look for the red tomatoes, and then ran under the cucumber rack to check if there were any cucumber girls who didn't grow up to eat. In her previous life, Yan Rugzhe didn't distinguish between grains and grains, and in this life, she has no chance to work in the fields. Aunt Hua proposed to grow vegetables. Aunt Hua is the nanny of the family. 20 years ago, the whole family was devolved to the countryside in the suburbs of Beijing. She came back after the implementation of the policy in 1978. The original house and job were returned, but after more than 20 years of vacancy, she came back again. Where is it possible to continue so easily? His wife died in the countryside, and his son got married in the countryside, and married a daughter-in-law with a rural household registration. According to the policy, the actual beneficiary is only Aunt Hua herself. The son can take over from her and obtain an urban huqiao, but the daughter-in-law and grandchildren with rural huqiao can't be left in the country. After discussing with her son, Aunt Hua gritted her teeth and left. The whole family will go, and the big deal will be to buy high-priced food. In this way, all 6 members of Aunt Hua's family returned to the city, but only Aunt Hua and her son had food and food supplies. The 2 of them could buy 56 caddies of cheap food every month, and if they were not enough, they had to buy high-priced food. Grain. It is not a small expense to eat food every month. Aunt Hua's son became a worker, starting as an apprentice, with a salary of 18 yuan a month for the first year. His daughter-in-law Zhang Zihuchun is a well-known iron girl in the countryside, and she can earn a full centimeter by doing farm work. She is a good hand, but when she came to the city, she was useless, and her family was not willing to let her go to the construction site to do those labor-intensive jobs, so she could only pick up some small odd jobs such as pasting matchboxes from the street. Earn penny by penny. The livelihood of the family is getting more and more difficult. Later, the policy became more and more relaxed, so Aunt Hua thought of being a nanny for others. At that time, Yan Rugzhu and Sui Yuanzi got married, and after living in the Tongzilu assigned by the work unit for a week, they returned to each other. Yan Rugzhu had been renting a house before marriage, but considering she was pregnant, she wanted to change to a place that was not too far away from the hospital and work. After searching and searching, she finally found an ideal place, which was not far from Aunt Hua's house. The Beiwa Hutong is within half an hour's walk from the work unit and the hospital, and the police station is opposite. After settling down, Yan Rugzhu considered practical issues. What should I do if I am in confinement? She definitely wouldn't go to Sui's house, and as for her mother's house, she also didn't want to go, and now there is no confinement center, so the only way is to find a nanny. She posted a job advertisement, asking for a babysitter who has confinement experience, can take care of children, has a bit of culture, and is clean and tidy. After interviewing several applicants, she fell in love with Aunt Hua. Facts have proved that Yan Rugzhu's vision is not bad. That Aunt Hua is educated, good at communicating, strict in her mouth, well measured in speaking and doing things, she knows how to respect the privacy of her master, she is not very curious, and she likes to be clean and neat. Under the care of Aunt Na Hua, Yan Rugzhu was raised well during pregnancy and confinement, and it was thanks to him that Kong Kong was able to grow so strong. It's really rare to find such a satisfactory nanny. Even if Kong Kong has reached the age of kindergarten and no longer needs a nanny, Yan Rugzhu still hires Aunt Hua. Not having to take care of the mother and the baby made the work much easier, and the salary was not reduced. Aunt Hua was very grateful, and she showed more sincerity to Yan Rugzhu, the mother and the child. Later, after Yan Rugzhu moved to Beilei Hutong, the house and yard were several times larger than the house he rented before. Seeing such a large yard, Aunt Hua was excited at once, and she exclaimed that such a large yard was abandoned and not used. It's a pity to grow vegetables, so I proposed to open up a vegetable garden for growing vegetables. When Yan Rugzhu heard this suggestion, her mind immediately brightened. She had never had the concept of growing vegetables by herself before that. Hearing Aunt Hua's mention, the talent for growing vegetables engraved in the bones of Hua people immediately started to move, and even more so. The real problem is that it is not as convenient as buying vegetables in my previous life, and there are not many varieties. Growing vegetables by myself can indeed solve a big problem. Seeing that Yan Rugzhu agreed, Aunt Hua immediately went to work happily. First, she found a shovel and a pick to dig the ground, and then drove her son to borrow an ox cart, and took her to the countryside to pull black soil, and brought back a lot of fermented soil along the way. Manure, and then the whole vegetable bed, looking for rapeseed, planting vegetables. Aunt Hua was working in full swing, and Yan Rugzhu and Kong Kong were just doing some watering work. Yan Rugzhu wanted to help. After digging the ground a few times, a big blister appeared on the palm of her hand. Seeing that, Aunt Hua rushed her back. "You are a writer, don't do such rough work. That's all. I can do some work by myself, but I have been farming in the countryside for 20 years. It is difficult to dig the land for the first time, but it will be easier in the future." The author has something to say. Little cuties, little angels, if you think this article is still worth reading, click a bookmark and go. Thank you. Yannian is too short of favorites. After the Qingming festival, they began to grow vegetables one after another. Early maturing leeks and green onions were eaten in May. Now tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, and cucumbers are all hanging on the racks. Tomatoes and cucumbers are all planted with early maturing varieties. There is already something to eat. The harvested vegetables are enough to supply the vegetables of Yan Rugzhu's family and Aunt Hua's family for one summer and one autumn. If they can't finish eating, they are all dried or pickled by Aunt Hua, so that there are vegetables to eat in winter. Such a large vegetable garden allowed the two families to realize the freedom of vegetables all at once. The vegetables in the yard also bring a lot of fun to the children. Watching the seeds sprout from the ground, grow into small seedlings, and then blossom and bear fruit is novel and interesting to Kong Kong. When vegetables bloom, they always attract many bees and butterflies flying on the flowers to collect honey. The big caterpillars on the leaves are also very attractive to him. Every harvest season, the first thing Kong Kong does when he comes back every day is to find cucumbers and tomatoes, and he never tires of it. "Mom, can this little cucumber be eaten?" Under the cover of the leaves, Kong Kong found a cucumber that was as long as an adult's palm. It was yellow-green and sparsely covered with small thorns. With his mother's permission, Kong Kong immediately ran to the pool under the platform, stepped on a small bench, turned on the faucet, washed his hands carefully, and even made soap, and then couldn't wait to run under the cucumber stand, using his hands vigorously, struggling to twist off the little cucumber, and ran thump thump thump, unscrewed the tap water and rinsed it, and then shook off the water on it, then held the cucumber and ran to the kitchen to find my mother. Yan Rugzhu lifted the lid of the aluminum pot, and a great smell came out. This is the dinner that Aunt Hua cooked for the two of their mothers, covering the pot with the residual heat from the stove. Aunt Hua's little grandson, Xiaoshitu, lived in a small town in Dongcheng district where a child disappeared on his way home from school, neither alive nor dead. Aunt Hua was worried about Xiaoshitu's safety, so she wanted to pick up and drop off the child every day. Since the child's affairs were nothing small, so Yan Rugzhu naturally did not refuse. Aunt Hua didn't delay her work, so she came home early to cook the rice and put it in the pot. Kong Kong ran in, sniffed his nose vigorously, squinted his eyes intoxicated, forgot what he was doing here for a moment, stood on tiptoe and looked into the pot. Yan Rugzhu turned to look at him seriously. Kong Kong immediately took a step back away from the stove, suddenly remembered the purpose of his coming here, and quickly held up a small cucumber and said to his mother, "Mom, half of each person." Yan Rugzhu first brought out a plate of pancakes, put them on the dining table in the next room, and then asked Kong Kong, who followed her like a little tail, "Then do you want to eat pancakes first, tomatoes mixed with sugar, eggs fried with leeks, or want to eat cucumber first?" Aunt Hua's pancakes are unique, golden, soft, fragrant, with distinct layers, both the mother and daughter love to eat. Kong Kong sucked in his saliva, and temporarily put the cucumber aside. The couple had a beautiful dinner and shared a small cucumber. To be honest, the standard of living of the couple is quite high in this day and age. Yan Ruxu's salary is not low, and there are manuscript fees and bonuses that are not lower than the salary every month, plus the money and jewelry left by her mother before she left. She can be regarded as a rich woman. I am very generous to myself. Kong Kong happily shook his two little fat legs and gnawed on cucumbers, humming a nursery rhyme, and picked up a piece of paper on the dining table, pretending to read to himself. He didn't know many words, but if he can't stand it, he will make it up. Yan Ruxu had read this note when she first came in. It was left by Aunt Hua. It is said that Sister Huang from the Yan family came over and gave her 20 eggs, 1 caddy of white rabbit toffee, 2 caddies of cake, a few strips of bacon, and some apples. She put them all in the kitchen cabinet, and I picked some vegetables from the yard as a gift in return. Yan Ruxu went to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and saw a lot of things. Yan Ruxu took out the toffee, cake, and apple list, avoided Kong Kong, stepped on a chair and put them into a small basket hanging on the roof beam. Looking at these things, Yan Ruxu was a little moved, and his father thought that he had sent most of the things he had been allocated to him. It was no wonder that his stepmother Wang Zayadai had such a big opinion of him. Yan Ruxu knew very well that his father had a deep sense of guilt towards him. For so many years, I have always wanted to make up for her. After the money was rejected, I would subsidize her in kind, which is very sincere. But, the estrangement between father and daughter is not created overnight. Once the estrangement is formed, it is like drawing a gap between the two. It is really not so easy to cross over. Yan Ruxu feels that the current way of getting along is quite good. She buys something for the New Year and holidays, takes Kong Kong to have a reunion dinner, and occasionally goes there on weekends. Okay. In the evening, Kong Kong drank milk, washed his face, washed his feet, and brushed his teeth. After that, he lay on his little bed. Yan Ruxu accompanied him, holding a book of fairy tales in his hand, preparing for Kong Kong to tell bedtime stories. Yan Ruxu remembered what happened to Mrs. Lu during the day. She promised the child that she had made up her mind to tell him. Since she agreed, she must do it and not break her promise in front of the child. So Yan Ruxu put down the book in his hand and said to Kong Kong, "When I was at the entrance of the alley today, that grandma came out to splash water when she stared at her mother coming. She wanted to pour water on her body." Kong Kong stared wide-eyed, puzzled in his eyes, blinked several times, his expression became a little sad, and asked in a low voice, "Why is that grandma so bad? My mother is a good person, why did you spoil my mother?" After thinking about it, Yan Ruxu decided to tell the child the truth. She can't educate her child like a little white rabbit, thinking that everyone is a good person and has a good heart for everyone. That sister-in-law Lu didn't take care of herself. She wondered if she would take her anger out on the younger Kong Kong. She had to alert Kong Kong and let him know that in this world, there are good people, but there are also bad people. Yan Ruxu laughed, and said, "She is probably jealous of her mother's beauty and her cute baby." Kong Kong immediately became happy again. Although he didn't understand the meaning of the word jealousy, it didn't prevent him from understanding what his mother meant. He raised his arms and drew a big circle, echoing his mother's words proudly and proudly, "My mother, she is the most beautiful mother in the universe, and Kong Kong is the cutest baby in the universe." Yan Ruxu patted his little head lovingly. The author has something to say, begging for collection. The collection of data is too hip, and if this continues, there will be no list. Yan Ruxu was very concerned about Mrs. Lu deliberately targeting her. She and sister-in-law Lu didn't even know each other, and there was no enmity or grudge, but she was rejected for borrowing money twice, so this person hated her because of this, so hated to do these little tricks behind her back. She wondered, could sister-in-law Lu be bought by Ma Jingying? After thinking about it, it was impossible. After all, Ma Jinwo was the vice-chairman of the labor union of a dignified machinery factory. It was impossible for her to do such a thing that would leave a clue. Besides, Ma Jinwo didn't even know where she lived. But she has never provoked anyone except Ma Jin women. After thinking about it, she couldn't figure it out. She couldn't figure out why sister-in-law Lu would borrow money from a stranger like herself, and she hoped that she would lend it back to her. She also couldn't figure out that just because she didn't lend her money, she would resort to petty tricks to retaliate against herself. Yan Ruxia thought, let's go in and out of the small corner door in the future, and would rather go around a little farther to reduce the risk. Yan Ruxia then told Kong Kong, there are many bad people in this world, just like Master Bai in the cartoon of Auntie you watched, isn't it particularly bad? Kang Kang's little head was turning around, thinking about Master Bai's hateful face, and he understood it all at once, thinking in his heart, I don't care about calling that person grandma anymore, and I will call her Master Bai. Snort! Yan Ruxia took the opportunity for her children to consolidate safety knowledge, such as never going out alone, not talking to strangers, not eating things given by strangers, etc. These words Yan Ruxia took the opportunity to tell her children that children can memorize them, but knowing how to memorize them does not mean they can do them. In later generations, kindergartens and parents have achieved the ultimate in children's safety education, which can be practiced safely. At that time, most of the children were still abducted. Kong Kong goes to school in the kindergarten of his own newspaper, and the management is so strict, even Yan Ruxia is often worried. He wants to go to the kindergarten to see the children at work so that he can feel at ease. Only now did she understand that the kindergarten and the newspaper office were obviously in the same big yard, so why did they have to add a wall in the middle and open the gate on the other side of the wall? Alas, raising a child is 99 years old, and I often worry about 1,000 years old. After coaxing the child to sleep, Yan Ruxia returned to her bed, but she didn't feel sleepy. As soon as he closed his eyes, Mrs. Liu's eyes appeared in front of her eyes. During the day, Yan Ruxia only saw resentment in these eyes, but in the dead of night, when those eyes were right in front of him, he saw more and more complex emotions. Those eyes are empty and dim, but mixed with some madness that wants to die together. Yan Ruxia shivered, his body began to feel cold from the back. But for a while, I thought again, since I became a mother, I love to think about things, this time I think too much, this is just an ordinary old woman, how can I be so crazy? What good does it do her to hurt herself recklessly? But for a while, I thought, what if it is true? Those who retaliate against society and hurt people in later generations, which one has a grudge against him? Yan Ruxia wasn't afraid that this person would be bad for her, but she was afraid that she would hurt Kong Kong. No, she couldn't hurt herself, Kong Kong was still so weak, she couldn't do anything wrong. Yan Ruxia suddenly sat up from the bed, excitedly wanting to rush out immediately, and have a real fight with that sister-in-law Lu, fight to the death. But no, such worrying, such impulsiveness is useless except for hurting oneself. Yan Ruxia fell on the bed again, covered her eyebrows with her hands, took a few deep breaths, and began to imagine that person's eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, and face, feeling that person's big hands as hard as steel brushing against her face, as soft as the wind is like a tiger sniffing a rose. Slowly, Yan Ruxia calmed down, her body warmed up, and she regained countless strengths, which allowed her to break free from her fragility, and her mind was extremely clear. She made a decision, no matter whether she thought about it or not, she would not allow such a hidden danger to be by her side. In the early morning, birds chirping and cicadas singing one after another, pale golden sunlight shines into the room through the cracks in the curtains. Yan Ruxia lives in the room, this is the main room, the layout is a bit special. Entering from the door, there is a corridor first. On the left side of the corridor is a very bright living room, which is divided into a reception area and a Kong Kong play area by Yan Ruxia with soft decoration. The area on the right-hand side is as large as the living room, but it is divided into 2 bright and 1 dark structures. A master bedroom has a compartment in it, and a storage room behind it, similar to the word Tian without the vertical bar below it. The structure is that she lives in the main room by herself, and Kong Kong lives in the compartment, and the storage room is connected to her bedroom, which is not used for the time being. Yan Rugzhou plans to convert it into a boiler room in the future. A slight tapping came over. Kong Kong called Mom and rushed into the master bedroom from the cubicle. Since Kong Kong was 2 years old, Yan Rugzhou let the child live alone. Although she loves Kong Kong more than her own life, she doesn't want the child to become a baby boy. The child has a strong self-care ability. After wearing the white round t-shirt prepared for him yesterday, black shorts and plastic sandals with green frogs thrown out, he climbed onto the bed and threw himself on Yan Rugzhou's body. Before Kong Kong came over, Yan Rugzhou had already sat up, opened her arms to catch the child, kissed him forehead to forehead for a while, and let the child wash his face and brush his teeth by himself. She went to prepare breakfast. The author has something to say, little cuties, little angels, in order to collect more collections, the number of updates will be less recently, bow down and apologize. She cooks her own breakfast, which is usually relatively simple. She goes to the vegetable field to pick a handful of lettuce, then picks up a scallion, cuts the shallot, pours the oil into the pan, stir-fries the aroma, then adds water, and after the water boils, add the noodles and beat poached eggs in water, chop the lettuce and put it in before it comes out of the pan. A pot of delicious and simple egg noodles is ready. Although it is almost midsummer, the temperature difference in the north is large, and it is not too hot in the morning and evening, and the temperature is suitable. Yan Rugzhou and his wife were sitting under the apricot tree, smelling the fragrance of flowers and plants in the morning, and eating breakfast happily. The 3-year-old child is holding a small spoon with a crooked head in his left hand, and a pair of children's chopsticks with duck heads bought at the friendship store in his right hand. He blows and eats by himself, clumsily holds a mouthful of noodles, and then drinks soup. Although I haven't used the chopsticks very well, but the appearance of eating is very good, and I eat in a leisurely manner. The soup is stained on my face, and I quickly wipe it off with a handkerchief. It is said that the children who eat with Kong Kong have better appetites than before. While eating noodles, Yan Rugzhou looked at his eldest son with a smile, a sense of pride and accomplishment welled up spontaneously. Kong Kong is a small person, but he has a big appetite. He can eat up a poached egg and more than half a bowl of noodles, even soup and water. After dinner, it was still early, Yan Rugzhou poured out the boiled water, ready to let it cool down, then poured it into Kang Kang's small kettle, then magically took out a bright red apple and shook it in front of the child. "Look, what's this?" Immediately, Kang Kang's eyes lit up, his eyes widened a little with surprise, and he opened his small hand to come over to apple. "Mom, it's apple." Yan Rugzhou handed him the apple. The apple is very big, and Kong Kong has to grab it with both hands to hold it. Kong Kong sniffed it vigorously, moved his mouth, and asked, "Mom, do you have any more?" Yan Rugzhou knew what he meant by asking this question, so she said, "Mom has it too, it's for you, eat it quickly." When he heard that his mother had it too, Kong Kong felt relieved and asked, "Mom, can I not eat it now? I want to take it to the kindergarten and eat it with the children." Naturally, Yan Rugzhou didn't allow it, and said, "Okay, then you put it in your school bag, and if you distribute it to the children first, then ask teacher Chu to cut it for you, understand?" "Understood," Kong Kong said in a childish voice, drawing a long voice. This is a habit brought out in kindergarten. Yan Rugzhou patted his son's little head amusedly. "Although fruit is still a rarity now, the family conditions of my colleagues are not bad, and I can bring back some local specialties when I go to various parts of the country for business interviews." Therefore, Kong Kong and his kindergarten children are relatively better in food and clothing. Other children I also often bring delicious food to kindergarten. Kong Kong did not take less. Children have children's social life. Kong Kong didn't put the apple into his school bag right away, but looked at the apple and wrung his fingers in a contemplative gesture, as if thinking about something big. Yan Rugzhul looked amused. She knew that Kong Kong must be counting. Some children had given him delicious food. How many pieces should his apple be divided into? I don't know who this child looks like. It seems that he is born with a special emphasis on fairness, or you come and go. That is, I gave you food, and if you eat delicious food next time, you will definitely give me points. If next time you have something delicious but don't share it with me, I won't give it to you anymore. Similarly, whoever wants to give me something delicious, I will definitely share it with you if I bring something delicious. Yan Rugzhou couldn't say whether this kind of character was good or bad, but she thought, at least the child wouldn't suffer. Yan Rugzhou's ideas are not in line with current mainstream values. She agrees more with the afterlife in the dream. In the later society that advocates the good will help the world, and the poor will benefit the world, and no one is required to blindly sacrifice and contribute. People who are lenient to others, good or bad, have been ridiculed as holy mothers and are no longer praised. Moreover, as a mother, she also hopes that her son will be more selfish and think more about himself. Selfishness corresponds to selflessness. She thought of that person again, but it was different from yesterday's gentleness. In an instant, her heart felt sore. She quickly turned her attention away, looked at the glowing red apple and said, "Kong Kong, do you know who gave you the apple?" Kong Kong said without hesitation, "Grandpa." Then I remembered what I wanted to say but forgot to say just now, "Mom, Grandpa brought other delicious food." Then he had an expression of "Don't try to hide it from me, I already know." Yan Rugzhou nodded his little nose and said with a smile, "I'll give you to someone who is smart." Every time Yan Liangshen gave them a lot of things, especially the snacks for Kong Kong, there were several kinds of them every time, which made the boy sum up the rules. Yan Rugzhou didn't lie to him, and reported to him the things that his grandfather sent over, saying, "Mom has put away all the delicious food, you are not allowed to steal it. If your mother finds you stealing food again, in the future, mother will eat those snacks again. You are not allowed to eat either." Kong Kong nodded obediently and agreed, "Mom, I definitely won't steal food." He promised well with his mouth, but his two big eyes turned around, looking into the main room and then to the side room. Yan Rugzhou had no choice but to hide the snacks, because Kong Kong would eat them secretly, and like a treasure hunter, he could find them anywhere. The author has something to say, "Kong Kong is so cute, are you sure you don't want to collect one?"